Hello, everybody. Welcome to the College Counseling Junior Kickoff Night. We are your college counseling team. I'm Darnell Haywood, and joined up here with Jen Fitzpatrick and Carla Krucka. And we have a wealth of experience in college counseling. I'm hoping you all aren't adding up the numbers to figure out our age. We've been in this field a very long time, and we love our work. The purpose of tonight's program is to explain to you a little bit about the college landscape, and also to teach you how to navigate this process happily. We see this as the culmination of the educational experience at Columbus Academy. It's kind of like the biggest school project ever. One of our goals is to hopefully lessen the stress that we know that you all feel surrounding this process. And we try and place this in the proper context of a developing child. And we know from that experience, the college process can be infused with love, happiness, and joy. Thank you for smiling. I see a smile out there. This is the first time we've ever done it this way, and I don't feel all that comfortable in front of the computer. So I'm doing the best I can to stick to my slide information, but I have to decide if I need to go a little bit more rogue. Okay. So up here we have is the agenda for tonight. We have organized a 1-hour program to help you get the information that you need in a straightforward, step-by-step way. We'll share the presentation with you tomorrow, so there is no need to take notes or take photos. You'll get all of this in your email inbox tomorrow. And on your way out of tonight's program, you will get a folder of information that will contain a copy of your transcript, your PSAT scores, which actually arrived at Columbus Academy today. So we printed those out and we'll put them in your folder, and your individual counselor assignment. There's a lot of confidential information in that file, and we are going to ask you to walk out the door with it. Not to open it in the hallway, but to walk out the door with it and open it after you leave here tonight. Tonight's presentation is like a large lecture hall presentation. This is like a large lecture hall class in college. We are giving you an overview, providing you the vocabulary and background information that will be helpful as we begin the college counseling journey. Following this meeting, we will have breakout seminars, and that's a word, again, also used in college classrooms. And the seminars that we will offer are for parents. We will offer parent coffees, and we'll give you information about all of those that occur. And students, we will have college counseling class. So those are smaller gatherings aimed at a deep dive into some specific topics. Students, all of you will be assigned a college counseling class during the second semester of your junior year. And then there are also one-on-one tutorials. So with your individual counselor, students will meet regularly with their individual college counselor in meetings. And parents will have one 45-minute meeting with the child's college counseling following the child's first meeting. These meetings are personalized and individual, and just want to give you an outline of what's going to happen. So really, when we take it from a very basic level, what is college counseling? And college counseling is really a match to be made. You will be leaving Columbus Academy, and you will be going on to college and university. And that really is a process of self-discovery, of research, and of sifting through all the colleges and universities that are out there and finding ones that might be a right match. Really what we do is we help students and families find a college or university that will be the next step in the child's educational and growth journey. It's a place for them to continue growing, maturing, learning, and engaging in the wider world. And all of our programming and individual counseling is about this. We feel that if you follow our step-by-step process, that this can be happy and joyful, and we're just going to ask you not to jump ahead. This is a process that takes time, and we'll outline the steps for you in that. So this is our goal. In 18 months, we want to have you all on the quad smiling as the final bell rings. This is a wonderful day for us and a culmination of the end of the senior year. And there are lots of steps to get there, and tonight we're going to go over those with you. And as you sit here, you may be wondering, oh gosh, how does this happen? How do kids navigate this successfully every year? And we're going to tell you they have a plan, they follow our calendar, and a step-by-step detailed process. So before we get this started, I wanted to show you that photo and then also pass this on to Mrs. Krucka, who's recently worked in college admissions and will be telling you a little bit about that. So here you go.
Okay, so I'm taking number 1 on the agenda tonight, which is the landscape of college admissions. And some of this, if you joined us last year in the college counseling preview night in March, I guess it was this year, then you've seen this, and we've talked with you a little bit about this, but we want to go into just a little bit more detail. This is what we call the admissions funnel, kind of in the admissions world, and I want to first remind you, we talked with you a little bit about this before, I want to remind you that the colleges operate like a business. They are a business. So we're going to think about it in that way throughout this first landscape of the college admissions world section of the agenda tonight. The most important thing for you students to know at this point when we're looking at this funnel, almost every single stage of this funnel you have control over. There's only one stage of this funnel that you don't have control over, and that's who the college chooses to admit. Every other step of this process you get to control. So that also means that you get to control the level of anxiety that you have and the level of happiness that you have when you're kind of thinking about the schools where you want to work your way through the funnel. So I think there are a lot of myths out there about what college application readers do and what it looks like, and I think everyone immediately thinks of this huge conference table with 15 people sitting around it, all of the files are open on a table like in a manila folder, and everyone's just happily talking for minutes and minutes and minutes about each applicant. I'm here to tell you that's not at all how it happens, and it's really a lot more like Moneyball, if anyone's ever seen that movie. It's like the Jonah Hill version of this. They are really working with statistics. And for those of you who might be working in a field where predictive modeling is something that you use on a regular basis, colleges use this too. They want to know, if I offer you a seat in my class, how likely are you going to be to accept that seat in my class, right? That's kind of how they're thinking about their business. It is a business model. And so it's all about the statistics for colleges. Something you need to know about the three of us is that we are really big nerds when it comes to the college admissions landscape and the world around us, and this is something that we eat, sleep, and breathe, to be totally honest, and don't get us into a conversation about it because we'll talk your ear off. But it's important for you all to know that we have our finger on the pulse of all of these things that are happening. The thing about the college admissions world, and a lot like any of the businesses that you might be a part of or that students you might be a part of in the future, is that there are regular shifts in the marketplace. And every year it seems that something new kind of rises to the top in terms of things that are interesting or happening in the college admissions world. And it's our job to stay on top of these trends. We go to conferences, we talk to our colleagues who work in college admissions offices, and we really kind of get their take on what's happening. And so the one thing to keep in mind is we are using really important sources. We're not just kind of Googling what the trends are. We're not looking on social media to find out what the hot TikTok college trend thing is. These are legitimate resources that we're using and then bringing back to the work that we do. And it's really our job to stay on top of these trends. This year, one of the biggest shifts that we're seeing, or the biggest trends that we're seeing, is kind of the standardized testing piece and how it's in flux and how there's a little bit of an unknown. And we're going to spend a little bit of time, Ms. Haywood's going to spend a little bit of time later talking about that. So students, when you apply, when you're submitting your application for admission to a school, you get to submit pretty much all of this information to them, and they have an opportunity to review it and read it and think about it. I think it's important for you all to know that the first three things here are the most important parts of the application process. The rest of it we'll talk about later, but these are the top three things that schools are really focusing in on. Not all schools require test scores. During COVID, all schools went test optional because it was next to impossible, if not impossible, to sit for an ACT or an SAT. But I'm here to tell you one of those things that's happening in the marketplace right now is that there's a trend shifting back to being test required or test preferred. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about what that means, but just know that there are all sorts of colleges and universities out there that are shifting their kind of test optional trends if they went test optional. So what does that mean for you as an applicant? Well, they're looking for ways to kind of understand you as an academic and as an applicant. And one thing that's also kind of coming into the picture when we talk about the college admissions process is something called grade inflation. And this is not something that's unique to Columbus Academy. It's not unique to the state of Ohio. This is something that's happening nationally. And so colleges are wondering, how am I able to understand what an A actually means when I'm looking at this student's transcript? So they're leaning into other things when they're looking at, the applicant as a whole in terms of academics. And one of those things might be requiring standardized test scores again. But another thing that they're looking at is AP test results. These are also standardized tests that students who are taking AP classes will take and earn a score on a national exam. And so these are some of the things that colleges are really leaning into as they start to make admissions decisions on students. Okay, I promise this is the last doom and gloom slide. I promise that my next talk will be a little more exciting in terms of happy, but we want to let you know that this is another big trend, the trend to selectivity. And so we assume that many of you parents in the room probably applied to college in the 1990s, the good old days. And so you can see that we do have a column of what the admit rate was for some of these schools in the 1990s, and then in 2015, and then again last year. And you can see that there is a shift, a marked shift towards being more and more selective. For those of you in the room who may be Buckeyes, who may have gone and attended Ohio State University just down the road, just to give you a sense of what it was like and what their shift looks like. In 1990, they were all but an open enrollment institution, the main campus. So it was all but open enrollment. And then nowadays, it is a selective public flagship university that's admitting fewer than half of the students who apply, giving you a little bit of perspective about who we see them offering admission to from Columbus Academy. We're seeing, the students somewhere around that 3.9 GPA with honors coursework on their transcript and presenting test scores in the 1300s or so or higher. So that's kind of giving you a little bit of the landscape to set the foundation, but now that was a lot of data, and we're going to talk about the happy parts now, and we're going to pass it to Ms. Fitz.
So in March, when we talked to you as the grade 10 students, we talked about the 3 steps, and the first being this guided self-reflection. And so just to review a little bit, there are tools. We're going to give you an appendix. I'm not going to read this to you. This is the part that we want to urge you not to skip. This is really important, and this is a part when we think about happy, joyful parts of the process, thinking about things you're good at and your strengths should make you proud and happy. So if you're not good at doing this on your own, we're going to give you some tools to do it. The very first thing that you're going to get tomorrow morning is a Google assignment, and it's called All About Me. We used to call this the junior brag sheet or the survey for your counselor, but this is really what it is. It's all about me. So we're going to guide you through some questions. It should take you a little while, and you have Friday off of school. This isn't due until January 3rd, but if you've been dreaming about meeting with your college counselor, and maybe that's just a couple of you, if you've been dreaming about meeting with a college counselor and you really want to get started, we'll have appointments starting on Monday, but step 1 is to complete this All About Me assignment. You will need help from a parent unless you just happen to know all of their biographical data. So this is something you're going to need a little bit of help with your parents, but we really want you to do it on your own. Some of these exercises are pretty self-explanatory, but other things in terms of self-reflection that we think you can do, if you've seen Ms. Conti's emails that come out about an internship or an opportunity alert, think about one of those. The alumni career forums where we have Columbus Academy alums come back to talk about what they're doing, that's another opportunity for some self-reflection. The other way that we're going to do this is through college counseling class. We love this class. We love a Kahoot more than the average person. We like to give away prizes. Over there, hiding, we're going to give a little example of this. At the end of the night, we have some prizes. We like to give out snacks for no reason. So just like on the quad, you have no food reasons, we have them in class as well. This class is important. It's a way for us to get to know you, for you to get to know us, and to actually put you on a step-by-step process for the college counseling. It's not something that you're going to leave tonight and say, oh my gosh, I can do all of my college research, I can get going. This is really a step-by-step, some of these things that we can do all together. And then in your individual meetings with your counselor, that's where we'll talk about your college process in particular. After you've done some of that self-reflection and you start to dive into college research, we don't want you starting with like a list of colleges and just going through the big giant guidebook and reading it like a telephone directory. We want you to think about what's really important to you. So take inventory and take stock of what's important to you and your family. We have found that these bullets that are up on the screen are sort of the perennial, time-tested, true to everybody can find something up on this screen that thinks, okay, this thing is important to me. We want you to think about those things, and then as you look at schools, think, is this a good match? Does this school have some of the criteria that I've just said are important to me? As you build a college list and you start to think about colleges, we want you to think about reliable data. And you heard Ms. Krka talk about, social media. Nobody loves TikTok and Bama Rush more than me. I'm just going to tell you, I think it's fascinating. And what social media is doing to colleges, the boom in SEC-going schools. But that's probably not a reliable way to do your college search. So these are some things that we love. The FISC guide, here's an example. We have it up here. Maya Learning, those are outlined in the yellow boxes up here. These really go from data, opinions and review, and then something we love to call organized gossip. So Niche is sort of like Yelp for colleges. If you want to get on and read about a college in that manner, you can do it. FISC has a little one-page review, and then Maya Learning is going to help you just with the data, but we'll get into some of those. We also want you to ask questions. So when college reps come here in the fall, you should be asking questions. If you just listened this year as a junior, that's fine, but as a senior, when they come here, we want you to ask questions. When you go visit colleges, we're going to give you a list of questions that we think it's important to ask. Parents, this goes for you too. So it's research time for everybody. We want parents invested in the research. We want you reading and discussing and building that relational knowledge. Okay, so you've taken stock of what's important to you. That's in the maroon, what your talents and your strengths and your goals are. And then you're finding out what colleges have to offer, and you say, well, there could be 1,000 schools that have everything in the middle. Okay, what's this diagram called? Geometry? Venn diagram, thank you. Venn diagram, everything in the middle, that overlap could be what's a good fit. How do you narrow that down from maybe 1,000 colleges to 50 colleges that you might research? You take out ones that are out of the location that you desire, or maybe they don't meet your level of selectivity. You're not seeing yourself in those metrics. Cost, if your family has talked about budget, maybe this is a little bit outside of the budget. Or ethos, you go and visit the college and you say, this just doesn't feel right. Not every school that's in that overlap needs to be on your list. Okay, so if we go back to the list of criteria, here it is. But if cost is important to you and budget, which is a lot of people, that automatically goes to the top of the list. And we want to encourage families to start having conversations. If you haven't already, start having conversations about budget, what you want to pay, and to think about if we're going to do a net price calculator, we're going to give you some advice about that. It's not a guessing game anymore. You can't say, well, I think we might be able to afford that school. I think they're going to give us financial aid. We're going to show you some tools. The question is not, do you have the money as a family? It's, are you willing to pay the price tag? And in our office, we talk about next year being the year where there's going to be at least one school that crosses the $100,000 a year threshold. Takes the breath out of my lungs a little bit. But every year we have families who are making decisions based on cost. It's not a few families. This is really from every walk of life. It's just a reality. The outcomes of a college are not dependent on what you pay. We're going to say it twice. The outcomes of a college are not dependent on what you pay. So if we talk about that business model that Ms. Krka referred to, colleges, they need to balance the books, right? So they can't just give you every single dollar and give everybody a full ride. That would make it really easy, wouldn't it? But we are going to show you how you can learn about financial aid, where you can get merit aid, and we offer a financial aid night every October. It's sparsely attended. I would tell you it's really good information. It's maybe not as exciting as tonight, but it's very good information. These are 3 ways that you can figure out what a college might cost. So on the left, the very basic need-based financial aid calculator. If you are a family out there thinking that you may qualify for aid and you can't guess within $10,000 what it's going to be, please go on later when you get these slides, scan the QR code, and just give it a try. It's going to ask for some very basic information, and they're usually pretty close. Every college is actually required by law to have a net price calculator on their website. So if they grant federal financial aid, they must give this information. My intuition, it's very quick. This is used by about 100 colleges. I actually tried this for my own child this last year. I thought this was the easiest. And then SmartTrack is a company that we partner with. SmartTrack is not necessarily for need-based aid, but if you're thinking about ways to fund college, they're good people to have conversations with. This is the time to start talking about it with your family. Okay, in College Search, you're going to start thinking about a college list. This rubric that you see with the green zone, yellow zone, red zone, you're going to start seeing it a lot from all of our meetings, in our office, in your individual meetings. When you have a college list, so if you have your first meeting next week, you're one of those people who can't wait to get in, and you sit down and you come up with an initial college list, that list is going to change many, many times. Your college list should be fluid and dynamic. It should not stay the same really for more than a month. As you do college research and you discover things, as you get a new score, it's going to change. As you talk to your counselor, maybe a new school starts to recruit you for a sport, this list is going to change over time. We think it's really important that you actually spend some time building a strong foundation, just like a house. That green zone, what we like to call the foundation schools, that's where you want to make sure you have several schools that you feel very good about and then work your way up. In reality, when you have your first college meeting, most students in this room know the names of red zone schools. That's fine. When you come in and meet with your college counselor, we're going to help to expose you to some of these other schools and help you to build that strong foundation. Sometimes we call these sleep at night schools. We want everybody to know that, gosh, if I applied there, I could sleep at night knowing I'm for sure going to get in. We're going to help you shape the college list. That's one of our big jobs. We also like to say that we would love for you to have 8 or 9 first choice colleges, not just, ooh, I like that one school in my red zone. I have colleges in every zone that I like. These are some schools we just want to throw up here and show you that these are schools that our students visit. They like them, they apply. Some students have matriculated to these schools in the last few years, and many of the schools on this screen offer incredible merit money. We get lots of questions about what's the typical college search. Last year's senior class had 105 students. They went to 69 different colleges. 72% went out of state. For those who stay in state, you'll see that number there. That's obviously a big chunk at Ohio State, Miami, Cincinnati, lots of schools in Ohio. After Ohio, the next biggest states are New York, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, Rhode Island. Some years that's California, Texas. They go far and wide. Our students really consider schools from all over the globe. We have Alaska on there. We've got some international schools on there. And now I'm going to pass over to Ms. Haywood, who's going to talk to you a little bit about step 3. So we talked about step 1, which was self-reflection, step 2, college research, and Ms. Haywood's going to talk about applications.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say, that's what I was doing. I'm so impressed with you all up here with this podium and everything and sitting on stage. I mean, I'm impressed with the junior speech process and how you all manage it. This is our first time doing it this way, and you're going to have to give us your feedback. Does it work? Does our personality come out? Are we doing a good job? Because it seems like we're getting into some of the drier details. But so what I'm going to talk to you about is your application process. So this is the information that when colleges get an application, this is the information they have about you. They have your high school transcript, standardized test scores if you're applying with scores, and then they have personal information, which is recommendations, extracurricular activities, and essays. Okay, so this slide, to tell you a little bit about this, high school transcript and the profile are usually the 2 documents that colleges pull out first when they're reading an application. Your high school transcript is a little bit, it's a very important document. It's like a passport or a birth certificate. It's something that stays with you. It's a record of your activities, your academic work in high school. And your transcript is something that gets updated at the semester. And students, you might remember this from Mr. Dow talking about this. And then in the final, at the end of the year, your final grade is put on your transcript. And right now, where you all are, is that you all have your freshman year grades on the transcript and your sophomore year grades on the transcript. Your junior year grades are in progress right now. And at the end of this year, that's when your transcript will be complete and that's when information will be sent to colleges. So if you are right now saying, I want to shape my story a little bit more, I want to add an elective course in, or there's a course that I might like to step up my work on a little bit, this is a time to do that because you have nothing on your transcript for the year. These are basically, you're writing your story with this, and it's one example of what they use to see your trajectory. The profile is actually a guiding document for colleges and universities, and that tells them that we are a school that 100% of the students go on to colleges and universities. They can see all the different places that our students go to. And then there's also on that profile a grade distribution list. So you will see that at the end of the junior year, they place on the profile information about the grade distribution of a particular class. So another bit of information that colleges will sometimes receive are your standardized test scores. And just to give you a little bit about these and talk with you about them, the PSAT, which you're getting today, is not used in college admissions. It's used for outside scholarship information, but not a test that's used by colleges and universities. College entrance exams are considered the SAT and the ACT. And those are exams that are offered throughout the year on Saturdays, and we offer an SAT in school on, I believe it's March 6th is the date that we offer it this year. So every junior will take the SAT at school on March 6th. We do have to tell you a little bit about the ACT and about what we're hearing right now from some of our college friends and when we've gone to a couple of conferences. Recent ACT administrations have been a little problematic in terms of students showing up and the test not running smoothly. Recently, ACT in the springtime was bought by a for-profit company, and they really have, the colleges are a little concerned about their lack of validity testing that they've done on the test and what it means. And so in conversations with colleges, what we're finding is that changes will happen in the ACT later in the spring and in the summer. And so we're going to tell you that after this calendar year, after you end your junior year, we're going to be recommending that students really focus more on the SAT if they're going to be using standardized tests. Then the AP exams, just to go over that for you, AP exams are college credit exams. They're a way for, there's college courses that is, if you get a certain score, colleges and universities will give you credit for them, many will. AP exams are not required in the college admissions process, but they're often used as a way to validate coursework and to compare students on a national scale. If all this standardized testing information is really interesting to you, parents, there's a webinar that will happen early in the year on standardized testing, and students will go over a little bit more about this in college counseling class. So if all of this is making you feel sick to your stomach, just so you know, there are students that apply test optional every year to colleges and universities. And that is a decision that we'll make upon the time that you're applying to schools. But sometimes people wonder, are schools really test optional? And this is a chart from Compass Prep, a test organization that we find to be very helpful. And what they have shown is that although colleges may say they're test optional or may offer test optional, that some of them are actually admitting students with test scores at a much higher rate. So for instance, at Cornell University, you're 3.2 times more likely to get in if you have a test score, if you submit with a test score. Okay, Now, this is the more fun part of the application. So just so you know, your transcript is one document. It's a static document. Your standardized test scores, that's a test that you get on a 3-hour exam during a Saturday or in a school admissions. But the way our students really come alive is in the application process. Now, we want to let you know that this is about 25% of the application review process, but it's really important because colleges and universities are asking these questions. Will the student come and get involved on our campus? What kind of roommate will the student be? Will you add to the college's vibrant college community? And how will you do that? And so this is a part of the application that Columbus Academy students are really good at, and they're shepherded by us through this process to help tell their story. They go from a sort of two-dimensional words on a paper transcript to a three-dimensional human being. These things are what we call the sprinkles on the sundae. It's basically, you've got the ice cream underneath, and then you've got these sprinkles, and so this is what adds color to your application. And there are many ways to do that, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So one other part of your application is the concept of demonstrated interest. Who's heard about demonstrated interest before? Okay, a couple of you have. Demonstrated interest is something that's measured by some colleges, but not all colleges. So question for you. Raise your hand if you went to visit, if you're a student and you went to visit with a college visitor who came to campus this fall. Raise your hand. Every hand should be up. Every single hand should be up. I'm looking, okay? I'm looking at all of you. All of you should. How many of you had to fill out a QR code or write your name and address and information on a card? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, almost all of you. So guess what colleges are doing then? They're gathering your name and your information because then they know that you came to that program. They go back, they put your contact information in their system, and they put a little check next to your name. This student showed up at the college visit when we had it on campus, when we went to visit their school. These are college admissions officers that are traveling from all over the country to come to our school. And when you come to those meetings, you indicate that you're interested in them, and they take note of that. We know that this is a fact, can be a part of the application process at some colleges and universities. We would say, though, that by and large state universities and colleges with really low admit rate don't care about demonstrated interest. So just so you know that as you're going through that, that's just part of this. That's not part of their calculation. Okay. So when you talk about what's in your control, because we know sometimes this can feel really out of your control, and there are factors that are out of your control, and we'll talk about those. But what you can control is the authenticity of your story. This is a big deal in the application process. Colleges and universities take about 5 to 8 minutes to read a college application, and they're reading hundreds of applications in a week. And they can kind of easily sniff out when a student is using a professional essay writer and they're saying things like heretofore or I walked through the oaken door. And they're like, what teenager would ever use those words? So you really want to be careful about the fingerprints that are on your application. AI, they can tell. It is much better for you all to spend time writing about who you are, what you believe in, what matters to you in the world, then trying to think, what does a college need? What do they want me to say? What am I supposed to say? And we really help with a lot of this. This is where Columbus Academy students have a big advantage. Juniors in your college, in your English classes in the spring, in May, you will write your college essay. You will vet your topic with your college counselor. You will craft the essay in your English class. Teachers will review it. You'll get lots of feedback. We'll look at it again, and you will go off to the summer having written that college essay, ready for submission to colleges and universities. Parents, do not meddle. I just want to give you this warning. We read a lot of these. This is not the time to go in and do this. And trust the professionals at the school as we do this. We also have application workshops in August, and that's when we say, don't touch the application until you come in and meet with us. And then we're going to spend 3 hours with you, and we're going to set this up. Parents, this should come as a huge relief that we're not tossing this off to you. This is something that we do here at Columbus Academy. But there are also things that may affect your application that are out of your control. And this can be hard to hear or hard to think about, but colleges have their own institutional priorities. They may be looking for specific dance majors, or they may have a real push to recruit rural students. These are initiatives that they have decided are important to them, and those are things that you can't control. So what we want you to do is to be informed about them. We want to tell you about the factors that are out of your control, and then we want you to use that to help shape and balance your list. So now I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Krutka to talk about something else we really value in this process.
Okay, we are moving right along. We are on topic number 3 of our agenda tonight, and I just want everyone to take a nice deep breath. We've given you a lot of information. Just let it out. Okay. If you're feeling a little anxious right now, that is absolutely fine, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't surprise any of us at all. And as Ms. Haywood said, she's feeling a little anxious tonight, so totally fine. We are up here to tell you, students and parents, that we really think about your mental health and mental well-being all the time. Doing this process in the context of school allows us to put things into perspective, we hope, with you. This is just one part of your experience here at Columbus Academy in the upper school. This does not define your junior year. This does not define your senior year. This does not define the rest of forever, right? This is just one little snippet, and we like to think about it in terms of the whole context of you as a student. You have an amazing team of people here on campus, including the very wonderful Mrs. Dillon, who is our upper school counselor. She's sitting here in the front, kind of hanging out with us tonight. You have all of us to go to. I always tell my students, and I know that my colleagues do too, my office is a place to come and be happy and celebrate and be excited about this process, and my office is a safe place to go if you're feeling bummed out, if you're not sure what's going on, if you're feeling the anxiety and the stress. Let me help you with some of that. We're going to show you some things here, but I really want you to know that you're going to get these slides. So there's nothing to really I want you to take this all in right now. We do this process in a really measured and intentional way so that you don't feel overwhelmed at any one moment. We really want you to know, if you follow these steps and you don't work ahead and you do kind of the process the way that we have it outlined, we've done this for a really long time, and we know that students can kind of manage this for about 14 months, and that's kind of what our plan and our process is looking like. We want you to pay attention to how you're feeling. Like, check in with yourself, check in with how your body feels. Maybe right now you should check in with how your body feels when you're thinking about all of these things, parents and students alike. We watch the trends of what's going on in this world. In the world of mental health and the world of adolescence, it's really, really important to us. And we work really hard to make sure that we're staying really tuned in with you all in this process. Parents, keep yourselves informed about this topic. This is important for you as well. We have some resources up here. There are 2 books, one called Never Enough and the other, The Anxious Generation. If you haven't read these books, I highly recommend them. They're really both very wonderful. And then we also have, I think it's from her Twitter maybe or Instagram. It's Dr. Lisa D'Amour. She's a wonderful child psychologist. She was here a couple of years ago giving a talk to our community, and she's fantastic. And we often repost on our own social media a lot of what she has to say. She does not exclusively talk about the college process, but certainly it's part of what she talks about and gives advice on. We want to give you some resources, and we want you to frame this in the development, the overall development of your child. Okay, so I think it's important to note this, and I want you to remember that anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. Dr. Adam Grant, who is a professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, shared this. I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong. Anxiety is a sign that you care about something that's beyond your control. Okay, so think about that for a second and think about how can you kind of put some things into place that you can control. Well, the best defense is a good offense. And coming up with a balanced list of colleges is a great way to ensure that you can kind of check in with yourself and feel good about what this process is going to go, how this process is going to go. It's another really important way to keep joy in the process. We want you to go for it. I want you to have red schools on your list. We all do. But if you're adding a red school to your list, we also want you to think about how am I balancing that? We don't want it to tip too far to one side. So what do I need to do? I need to add some green schools to that list. Okay, so that's really a way to kind of be able to kind of have that control over this step. Balance it out. That's the important part. Okay, if you're feeling a little bummed out, I've given you lots of hard data information tonight. So I'm real sorry about that. But I want to show you some data that may not bum you out too much. I want you to focus in on the orange and red boxes that are on this screen here. And I think this is another piece that's that myth versus reality piece. Oftentimes in our minds we hear, oh my gosh, every school is super, super highly selective. The good news is the average admit rate across all of the colleges in the country is about 65%, so that's not so bad. And then when you think about actually those schools, that fall into that selective, highly selective category, it's only about 15% of the schools out there. So again, keeping an open mind, making sure that list is balanced, you have control over how you put, how you make your list and what that super selective versus, less selective school list looks like. Okay, so we're gonna move on to number 4 now, and we're gonna do some kind of little fun activity. It's a call and response sort of situation. But before we get started, I wanna give you a little vocabulary lesson. This is gonna be helpful as we move into this. This is kind of the basics. I'm gonna give you some sample kind of case studies, if you will, as we kind of look at how some of these processes shook out for some example students. But I want to show you kind of up here the different types of applications. We're going to dive into this a little bit more later with the students in class and certainly with families. But there are lots of non-binding options. And then there's one option called early decision that is binding. And Ms. Fitz likes to call it the marriage proposal. If you're applying to a school early decision and they offer you admission, you are going to that school. That's how that works, right? You're withdrawing all of your other applications, you're not applying anywhere else, your process is finished. Then there are things like early action, which just means you apply earlier, you get a decision back earlier, and the rest of them are kind of the same way. Restrictive early action, rolling admissions, also applying and getting decisions back earlier in the process. And then there's our tried and true regular decision, applying in the early winter, getting your news back in the spring. The murkiest of the admission plans up here is early action. Kind of not really sure, but it can give you, as a student, kind of an idea of how your application is being reviewed and reading throughout the process. So just kind of keeping in mind that all of our students apply to schools that have early action. 100% of our students apply by that early action deadline. And we do have about 40 to 45% of our students each year choosing early decision as a pathway that they want to work on as part of their application process. So here is the red, yellow, and green zone school pyramid, triangle, cone, whatever you want to call it. You're going to see this so much. This is something, students, you're going to do at the end of this year with your counselor. You are going to sit down with one of us, and you're going to look at your college list, and you're going to put the schools that are on your list into the appropriate category for you. This is not done to stress you out. This is actually done to alleviate some stress. As you move into summer, you want to be able to see, where might I need to add? How might I need to be exploring different colleges? Okay, so we're going to walk through 3 sample Vikings. These are sample Vikings that are not necessarily those clear success stories. We have plenty of those every year, but we want to show you 3 examples of stickier situations that happened and stickier examples. Okay, so before we want to kind of dive into the weeds with all of those different experiences. And so I'm going to show you, and then Ms. Fitz has some treats where I'm going to ask some questions. She's going to pass out some treats. Okay, so we're having Viking 1 here. You can see the numbers. You can see the cumulative GPA, the number of advanced and honors classes the student has taken, test scores. We know that for this student and the student's family's finances are a consideration in the college search. Okay, so that's something that we want to keep in mind. And we also know that the student hasn't quite yet decided on a major. We can also assume that this student has had multiple extracurricular activities, and they're very involved here in our community. So when they sit down to meet with their college counselor in their junior year before they leave for summer break, this is what their list looks like. You can see pretty balanced in terms of number of schools that is in each of the 3 zones. And this is what the student says. I think I'm going to apply to these schools, but I'm not really sure. This is what my summer is going to look like, kind of doing some research on these 3 schools. So summer happens and the student comes back in fall, and anything highlighted in yellow here is a change. So what do we see in terms of college list changes?
My extra Halloween candy, what's changed? Yell it out.
GPA, I heard GPA. Yep. Okay, and you can also see that this student has added one college in each of the 3 categories. And you can also see that you can't really see it, but I can tell you that this student has decided not to apply early decision to any of these schools. They are going to, because finances are important to them and they want to kind of see how maybe the merit money works out, they're only going to apply early action and regular decision. Okay, so here are the results. This is how it shook out. You can see that the little graph is down there at the bottom who admits, denies, wait lists. You can see that this student did earn some admits in the yellow and the green category. And you can see that they were waitlisted in the red category, okay? One thing I want you to kind of point out, if perhaps finances were not necessarily such a strong part of this student search, in order for them to have an admit in the red category, we may have suggested that they apply early decision somewhere, maybe to Case Western Reserve or Colorado College. But that's how it shook out for Viking 1. Now I'm going to show you Viking 2. Again, these are the numbers, Viking 2 by the numbers, if you will. This student is someone who is taking advantage of our standard level college prep courses. You can see the ACT score from the junior year, and the intended major is business. When the student came in to sit down and chat with the counselor heading into summer, this is what the student has kind of come up with. It might look a little all over the place, and that's okay. There are lots of schools on this list. The student knows that they want to kind of go in and see, do some visits, feel it out, what might be important to them. They're not exactly sure what might feel right. They haven't maybe explored that quite enough yet. So that's something that they're going to focus on over the summer. All right, Ms. Fitz, she has her candy ready. What are the changes here?
What else?
Woo! Okay, yes. So a couple of big changes here. We can see that this student went from a 22 on the ACT to a 30 on the ACT. They kind of crushed that second sitting on the ACT. This would be this would be a student we may say is a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of that academic component, but also they've been really settled. I mean, if you look at all the things that have been striked out on this list, there's a lot. There have been some really big changes on this student's list, and they've added some schools in the red zone and a couple of schools in the green zone. You should also know, I guess, that finances started to come into play for this student as they were exploring colleges, and the family kind of was discussing the value and cost with the student, and that became part of this process. Okay, so now we're going to look at the results. We can see that this friend got admitted to a school in the yellow zone and the 3 of the schools in the green zone that they applied to. And for a lot of the things that the schools were looking at for this student, it was that upward grade trend, that really kind of showing that I've settled into myself in the junior year and kind of really crushing it as the senior year went along. Okay, so our last Viking example, Viking 3, again, by the numbers, the metrics, you can see here this student has taken advantage of honors classes, advanced level classes. You can see the SAT score here. We should also note for this student that budget and finances are a consideration, and this student is also choosing one of those really tough majors, computer science. So this major is exceptionally difficult at a lot of schools to get admitted to. So as this student is kind of moving, oh, there you are. As this student is kind of moving into the end of the junior year, after doing some research in the spring, we're going to look at this list. Now, if I look at this list, the first thing that comes to mind is it's a little top-heavy as we're looking at this, but that's okay. As Ms. Fitz said, that's oftentimes what happens in that first meeting and kind of heading into summer. So now is a time for candy. All right, what was changed on this student's list? more honors classes. I heard the GPA. Woo. Okay, and then they added a college, right? They took out some other colleges on the list. Let's look at the green zone. What's to note in the green zone? There's only one school in the green zone, right? So this is a list that we would say is high risk. I would have a conversation with this student and say, all right, if your green zone school is the school you get admitted to, how are we going to feel about that? This student really did like Ohio State. They were really happy with Ohio State, and they were okay with having this sort of this is truly an imbalanced list. You have to be very risk tolerant to have a list like this and feel like you can go through the process. But that's okay. We're here to kind of help guide you in all of those. Again, this student decided not to apply ED anywhere. They were just going to choose early action to see how everything played out. Okay, so just looking quickly at the results of this student, you can see the student was admitted to one school in the red zone and then one school in the green zone. And remember that this student was looking at one of those really highly competitive majors on top of having a little bit of imbalance to the list. So again, I want you to take away from this that the level of risk that you feel comfortable with is really important to ask yourself and check in with yourself again as you kind of work through this. Okay, on to the candy lady, Miss Fitz, to bring us out.
I better get some cheers for passing out the candy. Where's Coach Dunkel? Okay, I'll do anything for a laugh. Roles and responsibilities, we're really behind, so I'm going to talk as fast as humanly possible. We promise to get you out of date. Let's talk most importantly about the stars of the show, students. This is your to-do list. This is your job list. I'm not going to read it to you. You are so good at so many things. You are spectacularly terrible at reading your email. Get better at it. Colleges are going to send you a lot of important information on your email. Maybe you don't care what your teachers send. Maybe you don't care what we send. You should care what colleges are sending you. You should read it. If you're getting too much email from colleges you don't care about, come in. We'll show you how to unsubscribe from those lists. It's really easy. One of the things that needs a little bit of clarification on this slide is understanding application requirements. That might seem pretty basic because Ms. Haywood just did those 3 nice, really good slides about it. But then all of a sudden you're a senior and this stuff pops up like, oh, we're test optional, but you gotta send us a graded paper. Nobody ever told me that. We're telling you right now that you need to read the instructions. They probably emailed it to you, but you didn't see it because you don't read your email. Some schools are gonna ask for a peer recommendation. I actually think this is awesome. Peer recommendations, look at somebody in the room, right, and think, oh, this person will really write a great recommendation letter for me. They know more about me than anybody. It doesn't happen from a lot of schools, but we wanna let you know about that. Okay, so that's your list of responsibilities in your to-do list. This is sort of the bigger view. This is your role. And we want you to think, most importantly, about how relationships matter. What is it like with your class, the class of 2026? How is it going to stay, those relationships, how are they going to stay intact and good? And you've been building them, some of you since pre-K. Things that help is if you can be the person who squashes all of the college talk all of the time. So if the junior lounge becomes a place where it's like only you're talking about test scores and what college you visited, you are going to be the least popular person in the junior lounge. I guarantee it. It's right outside of our doors. We know who walks into the room and everybody gets up and leave. We know who it is every year. Don't be that person. We're just being honest. If it's on the sidelines, backstage at the theater, you're riding a bus to a field trip and it's all you can talk about, I want you to take a gut check. I want you to ask your best friend to keep you in check. Integrity in this process and relationships matter more than anything. Okay, you guys are laughing at me. Well, we know who it is. Okay, this is our to-do list. It's abbreviated, but this is what we think you should know. First and foremost, we're teachers. We're going to sit right next to you and spend time teaching you how to do the college search, how to build your college list. We're going to write your college recommendation, your counselor recommendation letter. This is what we do in the summer. When it rains, I write recommendation letters. When it's sunny, I play pickleball. That is my summer. Parents, if you don't send in your parent brag sheet by June 1st, all of the wonderful things that you want to tell me about your child don't count. It's too late. We've already written the recommendation letter. So I'm going to beg you to please write that brag sheet when we get to you. We're going to provide guidance through this process, and really our job is during the junior year, we really become kind of the de facto counselor. This becomes your first point of entry. I know you have an advisor, and we know you have teachers that you're really close to, We find that in junior and senior year, we kind of become that first point of contact, and we like it. We want to draw particular attention to the last bullet on the screen. We are a values-driven office. We stay true to the mission of our school. We are founded in our school values. Everything we do, when we come at it and we think what's the right thing to do, we go back to our school values. And we think it's important that you just know that, and that's why we put them up on the screen. So last but not least, parents, kids, turn to your parents right now and say thank you. Do it. Oh, that was so weak. Try again. Guess who's writing the check for you to go to college soon? I mean, you might want to hug them and kiss them. I'm just telling you. Parents, these are some of your jobs. These are some of your jobs. We talked about the parent brag sheet. Please do it. If you want to write 7 pages, write 7 pages. I say the more the better. I love reading this stuff. But your biggest job this year, and it's not listed up here, you are going to become a travel agent / chauffeur. You are going to take your kids to visit colleges. You're going to plan out all the visits. This is beyond their executive functioning. This is something that the parents are going to plan. We're going to tell you how to do it. You are going to help them with executive functioning because it's really hard to keep track of deadlines. You're not going to nag them. That's our job. We're really good at that. But you're going to help them with the executive functioning piece. And then in terms of your role, we want you to educate yourself about the process, and we want you to model good behavior. And we're going to start with some vocabulary. We are not visiting colleges. We are not applying to colleges. Raise your hand if you're applying to college. The average age of that person is 17, right? Not 47. We are visiting the college. You might be there, but you're in tow. You're behind. You drive, you pay for the hotel, you fill the gas tank, you buy a nice meal, and then you fade into the background. It's really something. Darnell and I have just gone through this. It actually can be a lot of fun. So take advantage. This is part of one of those joys in the process. This was the most fun of the entire process I had with my daughter. We loved it. Sometimes we laughed about the tour guide. Sometimes we laughed about the tacos we had. It just depends on where you're visiting. Parents, your other job is to manage your anxiety. For some of us, this is hard. For some of us, this is hard. I don't like the world of gray. I like black and white. A lot of college admissions is in the gray zone. You just have to get comfortable with ambiguity. Our rule of thumb for you parents is to find one night a week where it's going to be college talking night. Okay? So if that's Sunday at brunch, if that's Monday nights after practice, and that's when you talk about it. If you find yourself compelled to say something college-related, SAT-related, grade-related every single day, I'm going to strongly encourage you to get out your phone. There's something called the Notes app, and start using it. If you're old school and you want to do a sticky note, go for it. But if you talk college every day to your child, it's going to be tough. Don't do it. Resist the urge. Your kids really don't want to talk about this every day. What I miss? Okay, Miss Haywood, we have 3 minutes. You better really talk fast.
We're going to go over 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just going to give myself that kind of thing. Just a few last things that we're talking about. These are some of the resources that you have. And we have talked about them. You have your college counselors. You have the wonderful support of Mrs. Conti, of Mrs. Dillon, of Mrs. Schmall. Everybody give Mrs. Schmall a round of applause. She has improved our game so much. The Franklin stove that's in the college counseling office, all the little signs, the balloons that she put out tonight. She adds such a special touch to this, and we couldn't do it without her. And you also will see all this different programming that we have. But I want to draw your attention to one resource that we think is really helpful, which is Maya Learning. So Maya Learning, which is, all juniors are in Maya Learning already, and parents, you will gain access to this when you all have your appointments with us. We'll send you that information. And we want to show you the kind of data that it provides. This is a sample graph from Maya Learning. Those squares are students from Columbus Academy. And then you will see from there their results in the college admissions process and applying to Indiana. You'll see they're always outliers, and that can be based on a particular major, or maybe they're a legacy, or maybe they're being recruited for some kind of special talent. But the thing is that the graphs do give you an example of what this might look like, what the admissions, a thumbnail sketch. And so we're going to be using these with you, and you all are going to get comfortable using the data in this way. I want to tell you all, give you a broad winter and spring roadmap. But before I talk about this, I want to tell you that every student in here is going to have their own journey. This is going to be very individual. Some students are going to say, I want to pursue the performing arts, and guess what? If you want to major in music, you cannot apply to colleges till much later because you'll have a musical performance. You may be an athlete looking to play a sport in college. In that case, you're starting earlier. You're contacting colleges. You're getting involved with all of that process. And then there's students that are say, I'm gung-ho, I'm ready to get in, and others who say, you know what, I need a little bit more time. And all of those approaches to this are okay. We have done this for years and years, and every year our colleges have colleges to go to. We want to assure you of that. We are very much watching this, so there's no danger of you falling through the cracks. This is just a timeline of what this may look like, and you'll see along the bottom SAT, ACT testing, and visiting colleges. That happens on a continuum, different times for different students and families, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Here's another way. So that was a graphic way of looking at this information. Here is a list way of looking at this. Things that you all have to do. And you will see the timing and how this works. And what we want to tell you is that that one of the things that are important, the college visits and the testing, those take some advanced planning. So, you know, if you're looking and see you have any days off school or any weekends coming up when you might have time to visit our college and university, do it. Parents, you all go in and can set up these visits for kids. You go onto the admissions webpage. You go in and you set up time in advance so that you have a plan, so that colleges are expecting you, so that you're not visiting a campus without seeing anybody in admissions. You want to make sure that you do this. And we will have more information about this at a coffee that we have for parents in January, and students will go over a little bit more of this in class. The other thing, we've talked about this a little bit more, but test registration. This is, again, something that you have to plan for. You have to plan in advance. You have to sign up for a test date, usually about 8 weeks in advance, more 10 weeks in advance. So you need to look at these dates because you sign up at a local high school and people get closed out of spots and all of those things. So again, go home, take a look at the dates that are offered, all that information that we put in your Google Classroom about testing, look into that. Okay. This is when we sort of distilled down and spent a lot of time talking about some of the messages that we wanted to hammer home to you. This is sort of boils it down. Time and money are big resources. Those are, you know, resources that you have that you all get to decide how you're going to spend them. And we're going to tell you that this is the way, our prescriptive advice on where you should spend them. You should spend it on visiting colleges. You should do some test prep. You should take the tests, all of those things. Those are our advice. You should not do things in the no zone. And really excessive number of red schools or paying all sorts of independent consultants to help you with things like essays or more college counseling on top of what we do. And let me tell you, there's real danger in that in an organization when you go to a school like Columbus Academy. Believe me, there are many people that need those resources out there. They don't go to a school like this. They don't have this kind of counselor-student ratio. And what can happen is if you provide that to your child, the kids get exhausted, they get burnt out. It's too much to have a college counselor at school and a college counselor somebody else, and somebody else reading your essays, and somebody else, you know, putting their fingerprints on the application process. This is really, really important for you to know. It actually undermines their feeling of success in this program, and it can lead to overpackaging of a student application. So please hear us out on this. Okay, so now you may be thinking, that's one of these three things. and we want to let you know that those are all okay. And this is the time when we go over things that we did not already cover, and I did already think of a couple of them. One, teachers here. You all are so lucky to go to Columbus Academy. We have teachers who write fantastic letters of recommendation year in and year out. They really impact your application. If you didn't get the message, on the FIS Guide to Colleges, this should be a holiday gift or a birthday gift or something that you give your child. This should be at home. And this is a great way to learn about all sorts of different schools. Children, I promise we have something fun at the end. You may kill me for saying that. And then I think that's what I'm going to end with. Is there anything else that I missed? What? Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, good reminder. So you see that little cell phone up there? You all may have our cell phone numbers. Some of you we know through our children or through, different reasons, advising, all of that. Please do not text us about questions related to college counseling. We're really good at getting back to you, or if we don't get back to you, send the email again and say, hey, I don't know if you got this. But our texts really we try and use for personal information and for pickleball with Miss Fitz. Okay, so